Thank you all very, very much for being here. And thanks to all of you who will be listening to this talk afterwards, once it's recorded. As you know, we are here as part of the Miskatonic Repository Convention, and Zgrozy is a series that exists almost solely in the repository, so I thought it might be a good idea to talk a bit more about it. Just like we divided the panels with our great guests into two parts, the publishing part and the writing part, I decided it might be better to split this talk about Zgrozy into similar two parts, one more formal and concerned with how this series works in terms of management, logistics, releases, and things like that, and the other more creative, explaining how do we approach writing Cthulhu materials at Zgrozy and what are our main inspirations, our ways of, let's say, presenting the material, and also simply why are we doing this and why did we decide to run such a project. Just like with the panels, if you have any questions, please ask them in the text chat, and I will notice them and answer them as soon as I can. And having said all this, let us begin. So, Grozy, the series that started in Poland on in April 2019, and in the beginning, it was meant to be an extremely small, extremely amateur, very, very non-engaging project, just something to do in my free time and a few colleagues' free time, every now and then, no stress, no pressure, high risk, high reward. But it didn't really turn out like this. And right now, Grozy is a really surprising success in 3 languages. Our main base of operations is still Poland, where we have released 21 various supplements. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having some trouble with my PDF, but I hope you are seeing everything fine. Give me a second, I will restart the PDF. Yeah, now you are seeing what I am seeing. And this picture was made soon after the first anniversary of Zgrozy, and I still Max, I think you can see both my face and what I am streaming. Just click on the voice chat button, and then you will see one rectangle with me, and right under it, another one with a stream of my desktop. Yeah, precisely, 2 streams, one of myself and the second one of what I am showing. So right now, after a year and a half of Zgrozy, I can say it has been a success in a few ways. The first success was simply that we managed to put out so many supplements of various kinds, mostly scenarios, but also other ones, setting guides of sorts, advice on running the game, a strange supplement that was like partially a scenario seed, or maybe even a campaign seed, and bestiary entries. That they were so popular, like really, every time I look at all those bestseller medals, I am quite stunned that it somehow happened and it all succeeded. Of course, know that getting a bestseller medal RPG isn't all that difficult, so it doesn't actually mean that we are world bestsellers or something like this, but to have such a consistent string of releases that always reach the bestseller status, and usually sooner than later, it was really very surprising, and it was, of course, an extremely nice surprise for me. And finally, maybe most importantly, we are still doing it for fun and as experiments. Each creator of Zgrozy has his own idea about how does he want to develop Call of Cthulhu and the Cthulhu mythos, and we all manage to convey those ideas via our scenarios. And even though Zgrozy become bigger and bigger and louder, and our catalog of products just grows in a way I didn't expect it to grow when I started it, we are still doing it to show what do we think about the Cthulhu mythos, how do we want to develop them, and what somehow touches us about this genre and this way of writing. So I think the biggest success of Zgrozy is that it became quite a success and yet still remained a passion and not a job or a chore or anything unpleasant. But how this series came to be? By what crazy circumstance are there so many Zgrozy now, and why do we keep making them? I will start with this story. Oh no, I will try to be organized and start with showing 3 goals of this talk. The first goal, of course, is to explain how the Zgrozy series started, then to explain how we conceived it as a series, how we planned to serialize it and to create a consistent string of releases even before we announced Zgrozy as a series, and then show how on a day-to-day basis we manage its releases, the contact with our fans, by using some tools that wouldn't be possible if not for the fact that Zgrozy are a series. So, to put it shortly, we will be talking about why Zgrozy became a series, how Zgrozy became a series, and they are living on a day-to-day basis while being a series. This first story should be told in 5 steps. Is a small convention in Poland. I've co-organized with friends 2.5 years ago, if I recall correctly, called Cthulhu. It was the first Cthulhu in Poland, and then by extension, the first convention devoted solely to Lovecraft and Call of Cthulhu. It wasn't strictly a gaming convention. It was more about literature and movies and all the ways in which Cthulhu has invaded popular culture. But it also had a role-playing component, and we established a sort of a brand of CthulhuCon by organizing it. There hasn't been a second CthulhuCon since because life, but we planned to make another convention like this, and we hoped to make this brand of CthulhuCon alive somehow, even though there wasn't another convention. So we started thinking about releasing some Cthulhu material on Drive-Thru RPG under the brand CthulhuCon to make it live longer, and it didn't really succeed. We haven't done it, but it was the first seed of what became later known as Zgrozy. Seed number 2 was a funny small series I wrote called Monsters of Europe. Monster hunting RPG using the Horde by the Apocalypse ending. It's a story worth telling, I think, because it shows how the celebrities of RPG design are to contact. Monsters of Europe came to be because I wrote to Michael Sands, the author of Monster of the Week, explaining him that I have a few ideas for materials for his game, especially for materials set in Europe, because I'm terribly sorry to tell this to all the people from the US, but as a European, I am a bit fed up that most of the monster hunting and horror fiction happens in the US, and I want to write such fiction set in places with which I have more emotional rapport myself. And I sent a few drafts to Michael Sands, and he wrote back like, "Well, sorry, Marek, I have no ability to publish them. They look fine, so I'm giving you the license for my game. Just go and publish them on your own." And I was like, "What?" But of course, I used this opportunity, and by writing Monsters of Europe, I have not only experimented with the horror genre and learned various tricks I used later in Zgrozy, but also, maybe even more importantly, I knew I will be doing it on a shoestring budget and without much help. And I've always had a knack for editing and layout, so I thought maybe it's an opportunity to try and create text that will be my own from start to finish. So I wrote it, I illustrated it with stock photos, I prepared the layout in a funny program called Scribbles. It's like InDesign, but free, but it has fewer options, but in fact it deals with multi-page documents, a bit better than InDesign, so I stick to it even now. And what was a total surprise to me, it turned out that I've laid them out well enough to be printed in print-on-demand programs. As you might know, drive-through print-on-demand is notorious for having lots of requirements for your books, and often you need really lots and lots of trials to finally get it right. And yet, I have here two books I've prepared myself. I wrote them, I illustrated them, I laid them out, and I prepared them for printing. They are not beautiful by any means, but they are functional. And preparing Monsters of Europe uh, was not only a great adventure in itself, and the adventure continues today as I am still working with Michael Sands on new material for Monster of the Week, but also gave me this feeling that I am really only a step away from preparing solid RPG materials on my own. The only thing I lack is the ability to draw or paint beautiful stuff, so I simply need a graphic designer and of course a proofreader, but everybody needs proofreaders. Like, no one should release things that got no proofreading before being released. My courage grew and grew and grew, and then a few other things happened. I see that Max writes that he dreads the day when he will try to do print on demand. And like, yeah, I've heard terrible tales about it, but on the other hand, it went really smoothly in my case. So maybe this is just vile gossip, and in fact, it's not as difficult as it seems. So, step 3 was simply me having free time. This picture you see in this slide is the word count of an initial version of my PhD thesis, and it's still not really finished. I'm still polishing the final version, but when I put the final dot in the final chapter of the initial version, I suddenly felt like all the time in the world is mine. And when I felt it, I decided that I would like to write more RPGs. And my PhD is about historical horror, basically. And I like historical horror, and I wasn't fed up about it after writing my PhD. So I thought, let's do some more. And I've seen a lot of community content programs. It was the time when community content was getting really hot on RPG. So I thought, all right, Marek, you want historical horror, you want community content. So you have two main choices, either Call of Cthulhu on Miskatonic Repository or World of Darkness on Storyteller's Vault. It wasn't an easy choice because I like both games and both of them do some things which I really adore about RPGs, and both don't do some other things I adore about RPGs. But finally, I decided to start with Cthulhu, both because I've already had some experience in publishing Lovecraftian materials, not really Call of Cthulhu materials, but Lovecraftian materials for other games, like this little campaign for Volsung, a Polish steampunk RPG, Dei Urda Sang, a campaign which allows you to confront Dagon and Nyarlathotep and the Deep Ones in a very, very short, very crazy chase to the North Pole. So let's start with Cthulhu, and then question number 2, in which language to write, Polish or English? I've had experience publishing things both in Polish and English by then, but it was the time of a great Cthulhu mania in Poland that still is among us today, but it was at its heyday by then, because it was right after an enormous crowdfunding for the Polish edition of Call of Cthulhu, which set its goal at $15,000 and amassed $250,000, and really it was like a shock for the Polish community, like how can RPG be so huge? So I decided, yeah, it's a good time to write about Cthulhu in Polish. So I decided that this series, which wasn't Zgrozy yet, will be a Polish series of small Call of Cthulhu supplements, because by then I was very, very enchanted by games that promoted minimalism, and by the Apocalypse World engine in particular, in which if you even write anything like scenarios, like the Mysteries for Monster of the Week or Fronts for Dungeon World, they are very short, very concise, there are tools for improvisation, and not scenarios in the traditional sense. So I still thought, all right, they will be very short, very concise, very universal, like 5 to 8 pages, minimal layout, probably pay what you want, like nothing big, just a series for fun to spend my free time I've earned by finishing my PhD. But the final step before Zgrozy became Zgrozy was inviting Michał Gralak and Piotr Kozioł into the project. Piotr Kozioł is a brilliant illustrator I've met at Cthulhucon, who told me back then that if ever I do anything Lovecraftian, he would like to take part in it as an illustrator. And Michał Gralak is an author and a layout artist, and an artist in general, who was invited into Zgrozy by Jacek, another friend whom I invited to this project, another writer. I won't be telling you much about Jacek because, unfortunately, none of his Zgrozy have been released in English yet, but I have to tell you a lot about Michał and Piotrek, because their talent and their engagement basically made Zgrozy into what they are today. As I said, I planned minimal layout. I planned to do it in Scribbles using mostly some shenanigans with fonts and with stock photos, and maybe with some very simple gradient backgrounds. And when I shown my very, very initial, not even sketch, but like alpha version to Piotr Kozioł and Michał, they have taken up the colors, the overall color scheme, the general idea, and as you see, step by step, they created the final look of a Zgrozy cover and also of Zgrozy interior. The fifth page is our background for the first 2 pages, where we explain the most important stuff about our supplements. And the last one is our usual background, which are also used in this slideshow. And like, I was tracking the discussion between the two guys over Facebook over the course of a few weeks. And I've seen that they are coming up with more and more amazing, more and more impressive, more and more brilliant artwork. And I thought, all right, if this project includes such talent, if the guys are so devoted to it, then it has to be serious. I would do a crime if I would think that if I would leave a project that someone treated with such passion as a very amateur, very downscale side project. And I decided that Zgrozy will be a bit bigger, a bit more regular, and also a bit, or maybe more than a bit better advertised. And it was then, imagine me looking at Facebook and seeing this cover for the first time and those backgrounds for the first time, when it was said that Zgrozy will be a big, solid, important series, and I will devote my heart and everything and every skill I have as a role player and as a game designer to make them as big and as successful as can be. And then I gathered everything I knew about RPG design, everything I've learned by observing other publishers, everything I've invented or seen myself, and created a series of ideas, guidelines, templates to make this series as great and also as easy to write as possible. Also, before I move forward, it's worth explaining why are we Zgrozy. It wasn't my idea. The Zgrozy title was invented by Michał Gralak, and in Polish, Zgrozy makes sense because zgroza is slightly archaic, unintuitive, but still understandable word for a horror or a terror, and especially a few years back, Vesper Publishing House published a new, much improved translation of most of Lovecraft's work, and the Dunwich horror became Zgroza w Dunwich. Zgrozy is the plural zgroza, and this word isn't generally used in plural, so Zgrozy already sounds a bit weird, a bit unintuitive, a bit strange to Polish ears, but that's precisely the effect we wanted to achieve. So I was very, very happy when Michał suggested it, and I felt like, yeah, that's the way. Let's call ourselves Zgrozy. And when we started publishing in English, I made a post on Call of Cthulhu forum with a few suggestions of how could we be called. And I don't know if I put it as a suggestion or if one of the commenters suggested it, but sooner or later they appeared a question, wait, Zgrozy sounds perfectly Lovecraftian. Strange, unspeakable, nobody in the English-speaking world will know what it's about, so why won't you just keep calling yourself Zgrozy in English as well? And yeah, it was an argument I couldn't resist. And so we are Zgrozy in every language we have been released, and we plan to keep to be Zgrozy, or however you would transcribe Zgrozy into other writing systems, if we ever get published in a language with a different alphabet, for as long as we are publishing. So I said that being a series meant a few things for us, and now I'm gonna elaborate on each of them. As you see, the four main points are standardized sections, coherent visuals, consistent approach to the mythos, and creating release plans and bundles. I will focus mostly on points 1, 2, and 4, because this approach to the mythos is something that needs more elaboration, and I will elaborate on it in the second part of the talk, the one about how Zgrozy reinvent the Cthulhu mythos. The first one is in fact the easiest one to explain. Most of Zgrozy are scenarios, and we wanted the scenarios to be easily approachable, and we wanted our fans and our readers to get into the Zgrozy mindset, if I may say so, after one or two readings, and to make them and to make information easily searchable within Zgrozy texts. So each Zgrozy consists of a short opening page, which gives basic info on the scenario and also on the structure of the scenario, and then jumps through 4 sections, namely background, hook, plot, and investigation. Background, the information about what has happened so far. I always try to stick it to a single column because I don't want overblown background, and I still believe that our scenarios should strive to be minimalistic whenever it's possible. Hooks are a list of ways in which the keeper can drag investigators into the story. And I try to make Zgrozy work for as many different things as possible. Zgrozy usually don't contain presents because I hope for them to be as easily insertable into any campaign as possible, so they can be played with almost any investigator team. And those hooks present a wide variety of personal or professional reasons for the investigators to engage in a given plot. And that's how I make Zgrozy more universal and approachable. Plot is a more detailed explanation of the current state of events. Zgrozy are very nonlinear. As I've said, I'm greatly influenced by the style of writing that's characteristic of Apocalypse World and its hacks, which means designing situations rather than events. And in plot, I explain the situation, I show the main characters, I explain their motivations, I give their stats. Sometimes I write up some new mythos magic or mythos tomes or mythos creatures that are at work, and also, which is also very PBTA inspired, I give them something similar to PBTA moves, so a list of ways in which they can react to events during game. So, for example, when I am describing a spoiled, rotten aristocrat who thinks that the town is his playground, I am not only giving his stats and his personality, but also listing a few things he might well do if he feels he needs to take action. So he might invite the players to his house to intimidate them, or he may ask the police to work against them, and so on and so on. And investigation is the section which explains what tools have the investigators at their disposal and how will the world react to their investigation. So this section can be quite short usually, because you need only a few ideas to start the investigation, and then it's a constant back and forth between the investigators and the NPCs who have their reactions outlined in plot already. But there I write which clues are available at which locations, what tests are needed to get them, or if any at all, when can the players get various handouts, and so on and so on. Trying to somehow mix it together with what the panelists said during the writing panel. The plot is the toolbox for the keeper to push the story forward, and investigation is another toolbox for the keeper to react to the ways in which investigators try to put the story forward. It might seem that investigation should come before plot, because it's always more important what the investigators want to do than what the non-player characters want. But I have to stick to this order because plot also explains some intricacies of the NPC's motivation, or the past, or their alliances, and so on and so on. And the investigation wouldn't exactly be understandable without what is in the plot. If you buy any Zgrozy scenario available in English, you will see this those sections. In some newer scenarios, we are experimenting with this structure and restructuring it, but for the time being, everything available in English uses precisely this structure. Then, the visual. I must say, to this day, I am deeply, deeply in love with everything Piotrek and Michał prepared for Zgrozy. So, I use the fact that our series has a very coherent and very, very attractive visual side to promote it and to give our readers and everyone we meet a feeling that Zgrozy are a very coherent whole visually. That's why, of course, even this slideshow uses the background and the font we use at Zgrozy supplements. And also, I've prepared separate scribble documents, prepared such small vignettes as you see here. So whenever I have to announce something, I usually announce it using the Zgrozy font and with the backdrop of this special background prepared by Michał for our first few pages. Before releases, I usually post small snippets of the supplement we release, and I post them on the background of our normal pages. So, for example, here you see one of the motivations the players can have in future echoes, prepared as a small vignette on our usual background. And I also use the same backgrounds for our handouts. And on the right side of this slide, you see a Polish page from a supplement not yet released in English, from our longest scenario, the Mist Sower. And in the Mist Sower, the whole action of the Mist Sower is a confrontation of wills, so to say, between the investigators and a new mythos entity created specially for this scenario. And to make it more meaningful and impactful, I decided that the usual table for insanity effects will be exchanged for 6 alternate insanities, all of them strictly related to the plot of the scenario. And one of the handouts for this scenario is this page, from which the keeper can cut out small cards with those insanity effects, and then give them to the players. And of course, they are all laid out on various backgrounds used by Michał in various scenarios, because, like, why should I invent something new when those are so coherent and fit the overall visual theming of Zgrozy so perfectly? In some newer scenarios, Michał started experimenting with those shadowy silhouettes, which are much easier to fit into a page than Piotrek's full page graphics. So you will see them soon, and yeah, I think you can even see them right now in our newest release, the Debiletarium. And they also complement other aspects of the graphic design of Zgrozy very well. And I feel very, very, very thankful for meeting those two guys and for being able to cooperate with them for so long. And we've already created a lot of things that make me extremely happy, and I think this trend will continue. By the way, a small curiosity from the Mist Sower, there's an artist there, and as a small inside joke, we decided that Piotrek and Michał's artwork from previous Zgrozy are the art from an initial phase of his creative career. And right now he disowns it all, and he says it's just rubbish, and he doesn't want to paint like this anymore. So, in a way, our dear graphical designers are being roasted in this scenario, but of course it's just for fun. And Piotrek and Michał themselves had great fun hearing about this idea, and Piotrek even playtested the Mist Sower, so they are both okay with this, and I think that doing it that way also allows us to create a bit of a personal Cthulhu mythology, with, referencing the entities and vistas we've already created in other scenarios, and suggesting that maybe, just maybe, there is some sort of a greater whole behind it all. As I promised, the consistent approach to the mythos will be elaborated on in more detail in the second part of my talk. But right now, I will tell that we try to be purist, but also innovative. By purist, I mean creating very earnest horror that sets investigators against impossible odds and portrays this grandeur of cosmic horror in which a human is only a plaything, but of course also giving players agency. One of my main challenges for writing Zgrozy, create scenarios in which investigators can make a difference, but also they feel that the odds are somehow overwhelming. It helps a lot that Michał was creating his own pseudo-Lovecraftian creatures before he joined Zgrozy. So he has a great repertoire of new beings, entities, phenomena, and he inserts them into our Zgrozy supplements. And it makes them even fresher, because as the title of the second talk says, we are kind of reinventing the mythos, and we believe it's the right way to create very earnest, very emotional, very impactful cosmic horror, because the original creations of Lovecraft became a bit of a cliche by now, and we try to bring new life into the genre. It's usually easier by creating something new than by sticking to the old good Cthulhu and company. But as I said, it's a very interesting topic I'd like to talk more about, so I will talk about it in more detail in the second part. And the final thing I'd like to say is that because we are a series, we have a Facebook page, we have a newsletter, we have a very coherent visual identity, and we also care to put the word Zgrozy in the title of every single release we do, so that it's very easy to find all that's Zgrozy at once at Miskatonic Repository. Although we are not formally a publishing house and we don't have any sort of legal identity, we try to work as much like a publishing house as we can. So we are often posting release plans on various forums and sending them to our fans via our newsletter. When you visit our Facebook page, our background image is usually either our most current release plan or some sort of thank you post like this one. And I always try to plan a few months in advance and announce releases with a few weeks advance at least, and post small snippets taken from our supplements before I actually release them. Just like this thing you see here, it was posted on our Facebook page and on various Cthulhu forums days or weeks before future echoes released. And posting things like this allows me to make better use of this consistent visual style, to keep people informed about us, to give them this feeling that Zgrozy is a constant presence that keeps working for you and tries to give you as many new Cthulhu goodies as we can. And also, when I want to convince someone Zgrozy are worth buying and worth taking interest in, I can always use this glorious history of Zgrozy, because right now it's really quite glorious, I dare say, to show that we are not amateurs, that we already have been trusted by many, many people, and such posts always generate lots of positive feedback, and I just feel fulfilled letting people know that there are such good things happening at Zgrozy and that we have been so successful. So, another part of planning releases is also creating bundles. It's a great thing about the community content programs that every single creator can join his products into a bundle. A bundle is an extremely useful tool at Drive RPG, because a bundle allows you to combine your products into a single mega product that people can buy with one click. And what's more, a bundle allows you to set a different price for your product than they are normally available. Usually it means reductions, like I can imagine a bundle that would have increased prices for some strange goal, but I've never went so far, and I don't think I ever will. Uh, People who already have parts of your bundle pay only for those parts that they don't yet have. So when we release new things, we sometimes put our whole bundle on sale, including this new release, so that people who first hear about us might be tempted to buy everything, and not just the most current release, while our faithful fans who have everything get a chance buy the newest thing cheaper, because they only pay the reduced price from the bundle. And you can do really marvelous things when you have a few products with your own bundle, but you don't have to create your own bundles only. One of the great things about bundles is that you can set a special password which allows other people to join into your bundle and thus create multi-author bundles. I discovered it last year and used it to create the bundle you see here, the Miskatonic Repository Halloween Collection, with, if I recall correctly, 9 or 10 titles by many different creators. And it was really a great success, and it was both a great boost for Zgrozy, and it was very, very nice that by creating this bundle, we, Zgrozy, a newcomer into the English market, could help the community and become a part of it. So this year, there's another Halloween bundle. It's been released on Friday, and there's a link to both those bundles in the text chat of this channel. And like 2 or 3 hours ago, I announced another bundle, the Classical Era Collection, in which I invite all the repository creators to either submit their scenarios and supplements set in the classical era or write new ones. And there will be some Zgrozy in there, but mostly it will be to promote the work of all the creators, which I find really important and really, oh my god, you may find me really naive after saying this, but really heartwarming. Like, I must say, there are many great things about working in the Cthulhu fandom. Part of this is simply that Cthulhu mythos are such a great, immense body of inspiring material, but equally important is that it is probably the kindest fandom I've ever met. I've been in fandoms of various role-playing games and various other media. And I'm not sure if I've ever met other fandom as helpful, as kind, as warm, as welcoming as the Cthulhu fandom. So it's just really great to work with you guys and to help you guys. And if Zgrozy can help contribute in any way to the overall global Cthulhu society, then we'll be more than pleased to do so. And I will surely organize further bundles which will partially help promote Zgrozy, but also help promote just anyone who wants to have their Cthulhu supplements promoted, because you all deserve it and we all should strive to be recognized more. Last little detail I would like to share with you is a funny website called MailChimp, which I discovered when I started Zgrozy in English. And MailChimp is a service which allows any of us to establish a newsletter almost for free. That is, it is free until you have no more than 2,000 subscribers. And when I have 2,000 subscribers, I believe I will be able to pay for the professional account easily. So as of now, it's just free publicity for me. I've created a landing page for Zgrozy. If you click at pinned message in the voice in the text chat, or wait, it will be easier if I just repost it right now. Yeah, the link is a bit long, but it works. No, it doesn't, sorry. It directs you to the original message. I'm still learning some things about Discord, as you see. The link works now, and when you click it, you will get to the landing page of our newsletter, and please do subscribe to it. I'm sending our subscribers like 2 to 3 messages per month about what we plan to release, about what we have just released, and sometimes about some other promotions and other cool stuff. I always send discount links when I announce a new release, because it's a thank you gesture for our subscribers, and simultaneously helps build momentum, because the bestseller algorithms on drive-thru work that way that sales during the first few days are really crucial. And if you manage to get to the bestseller list right after the release, you get great momentum, and your text is visible for very, very long. So it's a win-win for both me and for the people who subscribed. So please do. And MailChimp is very intuitive. Like, it doesn't take any sort of coding or anything, and it has great tools for building your messages to subscribers from a few very simple blocks. So if any of you has some sort of an author page or regular releases, or just has any need to contact anyone regularly, I would very much recommend establishing a MailChimp account. I once thought that it would be cool to create a global MailChimp newsletter for the repository as a whole, so that any author could ask the keeper of this newsletter to send info about the new release. I thought it might be more direct than Miskatonic Mondays at Chaosium, which are great, but maybe not as actionable as a mail which goes right into your email account. But honestly, I have no time to manage this. If any of you does, then really I would be so grateful. It would help us all so much. So I can't promise anything, but I think the idea would work. So if any of you have time and energy for this, you would be a hero of the repository, really. And I think that's all I have for you about the management of Zgrozy as a series. So to sum things up, publishing within a series which has an established identity, repeated visual style, and a consistent template of writing scenarios makes my job and the job of my colleagues from Zgrozy both simpler and more effective. We don't have to reinvent the wheel with every single release. We can use the layout and the parts of the text every time. We can post short snippets and sneak peeks of our releases beforehand, and we have a consistent fan base. We can create bundles. We can take part in others bundles. We are working in various ways to get fan base and reputation, and every new scenario or supplement we are releasing doesn't have to fight for attention from scratch, but uses this whole snowball effect of the fan base and the attention and the trust we have built with our previous releases. Of course, it works similarly when one person releases many supplements, but I believe the edge of having a series over having just an author's reputation is that a series works a bit like a brand, so it imprints in people's minds using its visuals and its consistent style and the theming that repeats. So I would say that series are more memetic than just separate releases. They are an easier assault point to make a group invasion on the minds of the Cthulhu fandom. And I think that my job as a Miskatonic Repository creator is made much easier and much more fulfilling by the fact that I publish within a series and not just releases that would be connected only by me as the author. I think that's all. Thank you very, very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please write them down in the text chat. And in a few minutes, I will start the part 2. So I will tell you how at Zgrozy we are reinventing the Cthulhu mythos. So Heinrich, we are past the schedule already. And so I think we might close the recording now, just so that we have 2 shorter recordings, which will be easier digestible. As you can see in this Mistsower page, we have like 4 of them by now, and maybe even more in some supplements. I haven't done any big revisions to the template so far. I plan to make a revision thanks to which the headers will be separate fields, because right now it's sometimes a bit clumsy that the headers of our text are, I don't have a good example here, but the headers of our texts are part of the main text field, which sometimes messes up the layout a bit, and I will have to fix it. But the first big overhaul, I think, will be when I move from Scribbles to Affinity, because Affinity basically combines the good things about Scribbles and InDesign, and I was advised to use it by many, many people by now. And the first time I have a bit of free time, I'm downloading the free version and trying to recreate and improve that Zgrozy template there, and I think that my work will go even smoother after this transition. I hope this answers your question, Aaron. But Heinrich, truth be told, I believe you are wrong, because we have only one voice chat for all the Zgrozy events. So I'm staying here, and if you Oh yeah, so am I, really. But it's almost finished already, and we've done a great job, so we have all the right to be tired. Yeah, we say in here, tired and fulfilled and happy. So, do you have any more questions about this series part of publishing Zgrozy? Perfect, Aaron, just perfect. I can't wait to see your series. You're welcome. Right. Heinrich is very, very right. So let's take a short break now, and we'll see each other at 5 p.m. UTC, which means 7 p.m. for me, and it's in 5 minutes. So see you soon. And at 5 p.m. UTC, we are starting the second part of this Grozy presentation.